Welcome back to another episode of 40 Facts About the 40K Universe. I am your host, Gershwan, and today we're going to be talking about the Imperium of Man as we get into the common architectural structures of an Imperial Hive City. If you're new to the channel, subscribe. We post Warhammer 40K lore videos every single day. If you have any suggestions for topics, please comment down below. And if you enjoy our content, thank our patrons on Patreon. It is because of them that we can do this. Link in the description if you guys want to support us. But with that said, let's get into the common architectural structures of the Imperium of Man. The Imperium's population is so vast that it is unimaginable to the regular human mind. A high percentage of these individuals are concentrated in enormous urban sectors. These cities grow so large that their borders overlap one another, sprawling until there is no more space in which to expand, except upward or downward. The largest of these conglomerations are known as Hive Cities, layered constructions of plasteel and rockcrete stacked endlessly upon each other. Many are thousands of years old, dating to a time before the Imperium itself. Over time, these cities have grown until they tower over the landscape, man-made mountains whose spires pierce the atmosphere. Within each vaulted layer of Hive City stands edifice after edifice, linked by narrow streets and punctuated by billowing smokestacks. At the core of nearly every Hive City in the Imperium can be found the sectors Imperialis. Such precincts are dense with Gothic, cathedral-like structures, rising impossibly high. Here the gears of bureaucratic powers and manufacturing forces turn the cogs that churn the vast edifices of the Imperium itself. A typical Hive City within the Imperium stretches across hundreds, if not thousands of miles. Standard urban anatomy has dwellings and heavier industry near the base levels. The administration and light manufacturing runs from ground level to the lowest tiers of the upper hive, while the wealthiest classes rule from the spires high above the ground beneath them. The subsurface, or the underhive, is where the poorest dregs inevitably gather, and the farthest down one travels, the more lawless and desperate things become. The Imperium has affixed official designations to different sectors found within a Hive City, but every Hive City is different. The most common of these classifications are the sectors peripheris. These are the outskirts beyond the hive's borders. The Imperialis, which is the main hive levels. The Mechanicus, which is the heavy industrial zones. The Spirum, which is the upper spires. The Habculums, which is the vast habitational blocks. And the Infernis, which is either the underwaste or the underhives. Out of all these classifications, the sector Imperialis is by far the most common and describes the most varied and populated of divisions within a hive. In such sectors can be found teeming billions of citizens. There, laborers toil for long shifts in workshops, making ammunition, chemical agents, processed foods, or countless other synthetic wares. The majority of the hives are self-sufficient, with all human requirements such as nourishment, water, and air, produced and recycled within the sectors Imperialis. It is true that such products, including the atmosphere itself, are gritty, polluted, and unwholesome, but they are capable of sustaining life. While many different edifices make up the sector Imperialis, most are rendered in the classic architectural style adapted by the Imperium. They are vast and grimly Gothic. The most abundant buildings are those controlled by the Adeptus Administratum. The Adeptus Administratum is the largest of all the departments of the Adeptus Terra. It is so impossibly unwieldy that some of the different branches work at odds with each other, pursuing contradicting goals and even supplying contradictory information. An administratum building could house any number of governmental agencies, such as those that deal with the tithe collection, psychoregistration, or historical revisions. Each of those offices might be supported by any number of additional data mills, sensoriums, or recruiting agencies. There are hundreds of different civil offices for each planet, such as departments which deal out mining permits, track abhuman bylaws, or process inter-hive atmospheric discrepancies. The entirety of any world is recorded, filed, indexed, and updated by the monumentous army of the bureaucratic menials. The administratum buildings are nearly always identified by the sign of the Aquila on or above the door. As staggeringly ineffective as these structures are, the twin-headed eagle is still perhaps the best living symbol of the Imperium, and so they make ideal rallying points for the armies of mankind during battle. Indeed, such buildings are often targeted by the enemies, and the Chaos factions in particular take perverse delight in smashing down these icons. Ironically, thanks to the massive inconsistency in the importance of each of these structures, an enemy can never be sure when they are destroying an administratum building if they are crippling a hub of the planetary government or simply wrecking an office that hoarded needless data. Another common site within the sector Imperialis is the Manufactorums. The Manufactorums are the ubiquitous factories of the Imperium. Each is controlled by one of the various branches of the Adeptus Administratum, while the Adeptus Mechanicus aids with the supply and maintenance of their machineries. Many manufactorums house production lines that make parts of a larger assembly. For instance, there are hundreds of different buildings, and each one makes up a simple component for a specific filtration vent in another vast structure where the product is finally assembled. Others create items from start to finish, such as the Manufactorum Lucernis, a forge plant which processes human corpses and renders them into candles, or the Cerberium, a factory that creates biofuel to power stab lights out of the fungus that proliferates within the atmospheric conductors. Most manufactorums are marked by the symbols of the Adeptus Mechanicus, and many bear heavy blast doors. Clad in ferro steel, these imposing shutters hermetically seal the building, protecting the precious machinery inside, as well as ensuring only a portion of the often highly toxic waste they produce leaks out. Some particularly harsh industries also use blast doors to ensure their workforce can never leave. Another common imperial building found in the sector Imperialis are the sanctums. The one true Sanctum Imperialis is the massive complex within the Imperial Palace on Terra. From there the Emperor ruled, and to this day still resides, interned within the Golden Throne. The sanctums within a Hive City sector Imperialis are named after this famed landmark, and it is said that some small portion of the inner light of the Emperor himself shines upon such structures bearing the name. A beacon to the devout, each Sanctum Imperialis is an office of the Imperial Cult, the only sanctioned religion in the Imperium of Man, and it is operated by the Adeptus Ministorum, commonly known as the Ecclesiarchy. Such structures are typically adorned with statues of saints, and the faithful believe the signs of the God Emperor that embellish its walls and portals guard against malignant entities and sorceries. Perhaps it is the power of faith made manifest, but in times of need such structures often glow with a ghostly nimbus. However, only one willing to risk being branded as a heretic would suggest that the light emanates strictly from the autolumens. These are stone lanterns or sensors created within the statues. There have been numerous reports of these lights actually driving away foes. For example, sending demon shriekings into wisps of nothingness, or causing rampaging orc mobs to halt their charge and gape in dumbfounded awe. Whether these are true events or the delusions of the combat fatigued, many Imperial forces continue to look for salvation while in the presence of the Sanctum Imperialis. The Basilicum is another common feature in the sector Imperialis. Such structures serve several purposes within a hive. First and foremost, the Basilicum is a meeting place for administration purposes, a forum for the varied branches of the Adeptus Administratum. Secondly, many of the buildings serve as civil law courts for their hive precincts, where the relevant administratum officials can resolve disputes. And finally, the most importantly to hive-dwelling citizens, the Basilicums acts as a broadcast point for the official proclamations. At any given time, multiple branches of the administratum might hold council inside one of the many halls within the Basilicum. Anything from trade deals to allocation of psychic quotas are discussed. Most basilicums are built alongside an STC guideline and contain interior colonnades that divide the space into long aisles with an apse at the end of one. It is there that the official commonly called a prefects sits upon a raised dais to give judgment upon claims brought on by the administratum officials. Because the average hive citizen knows or cares little about the internal workings of the Adeptus Administratum or their squabbles, it is the third function of the basilicum that interests them the most. The statues flanking the key entrances to the basilicum issue hourly statements and daily proclamations, largely propaganda in the form of thoughts for the pious citizen, but occasionally news that is important to the local precinct. Crowds gather in great numbers to hear such dispensed wisdom. Basilicums are typically named for a sponsor, often a noble from the spire. This is one way for the enterprising individual to garner status and reputation in the hive, as well as to ensure magisterium rulings over their own chosen actions. It is not uncommon for political intrigue or even open violence to determine control of the basilicum between feuding factions, although some administratum agencies resolve the differences simply by building another basilicum. The aforementioned building types might be the most commonly found in a hive sector Imperialis, but these are a minute fraction of the variety of structures found within such zones. There are innumerable shrines, garrisons, and training facilities for the Planetary Defense Force, but storage tanks, dock ports to receive transit from orbital spacecrafts, and warehouses to store it all. The largest of these are seen in heavier industrial zones, but smaller ones and countless relays can be found stretching out in a sprawling web throughout a maze of hives' infrastructure. There are also maglev lines that run across hives, going over, under, or through the endless rows of buildings. Maglev stations allow cargo or people to move vertically to the upper or lower levels. Tangles of weathered gantries crisscross the skyline. Enormous statues commemorating anything from heroes of the Imperium to a particularly ego-driven planetary governor. Running through all levels of the hive are coils of cables, vents, access tunnels, pipeworks, and draining canals. These features are large and more prevalent in more industrialized areas, but can be found throughout every sector. Ruins are also commonplace in any hive, and come in many shapes, sizes, and degrees of structural integrity. Where fighting has been particularly fierce, entire sections of hives are nothing but craters and few skeletons of twisted girders. In some forlorn districts, shanty towns exist, although these are more common in the underhive or outskirts. Such scrap-built buildings can be found anywhere, teeming with mutant outcasts, savage gangers, and practitioners of prescribed religions. And those were 40 facts on the most common architectural structures found in a hive city. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope it inspires you to either go out and buy some cool structures for your hive city or your tabletop, or build your own. As a matter of fact, I was kind of inspired to build some cool-ass terrain. Expect that very soon on the channel. We have some things in the works. If you guys have suggestions for any other topics, please comment down in the comment section below. Let us know what they are. And thank you guys so much for listening. I'll talk to you tomorrow. This was Gersh1 with One Mind Syndicate signing out.
Always used to put my freedom first in any situation.